Great, so thank you guys all for coming. Thank you, Jory, for putting this on. My name is Tanner Barnes. I'm the CEO and founder of Kash Industries. We're pretty new. I just incorporated December. So we are a company that builds automation software to solve all sorts of manual problems in companies. Our flagship product is what I'm going to get into today. So we've identified a problem wherein banks in their internal loan department take finished loans and they manually split them up into their separate pieces, take like a promissory note or what have you in the loan for easier grabbing after they need to look them back up. So they get the final loan packages. Some of these can be 200 pages or more, and they're manually segmenting them. So if you take a company that has 2 employees doing this job, they spend on average of 3 hours to take care of a 200-page loan document. You're doing 25 a month with about $20 an hour. They spend $36K a year annually to do a job that's purely manual. So our solution that I've built an MVP for over a handful of weeks is one bot that can do a 200-page loan in about 14 minutes, which is 0.23 hours. That same number of loans I can do annually what they do for $36K for $128. So huge cost saving year over year to do that same job in a fraction of the time. So the question, why now? Really because we just identified this problem. This is something I did not know existed. I had a friend of mine bring it to me, and it just seemed like something we could solve immediately and quickly. So looking at a rough market size, some of this is still in works as I'm learning more about the market. 12,000 plus banks and credit unions across America. If you look at just 1% of those, 120 banks needing this type of solution, using that same model of $36K a year, you're looking at about $4.3 million spent every year on a manual process that can be done much, much simpler. So there is some competition in this market, though not directly. There's a company called Doc Parser. Their main solution is pulling text, just like it sounds, out of documents for parsing in CSV formats or Excel. They do offer a loan or a document splitting feature where you can define rule sets, but it's a sub-feature. It's not really something they market directly for their product. The other issue that I've been told directly by banks I've talked to is they are a SaaS product, and banks are, as you can maybe assume, very wary about taking a loan document or something with such personal information and putting it up on a cloud infrastructure. Even if you can guarantee all day that it can't be hacked, we have all seen the track record of companies that can be. And our differentiator there is that we deploy the software directly on site at the banks. So their data never leaves their enclave and their internal networks. So like I was saying with the product, it's a simple 4-step process. Banks can take their loans that they were already manually processing, upload them to the system. They can build a custom rule set that they can decide where they want and how they want to split these documents. Once they built that rule set, they can apply it to the document, submit it for processing, and once it's done, they can export it to a myriad of different solutions like Salesforce, SAP, or just directly as a zip file to do what they like. If for some reason you change lawyers and that document changes, all you have to do is load that document, edit that rule set, resave it, and you're back in business. All you have to do is teach it once, and from then on it's doing it manually or automatically. So some of the features, it does OCR, so even if you have documents that are hand scanned in and not computer generated, it can read those and parse them just the same. You can submit multiple ones at once for batch processing, so it's not a single one at a time. If you've got 200 that are the same, you can load them up together and process them in tandem. We can do third-party aggregation, so once it's done, we can upload it to SAP or Salesforce. Like I said, it's locally sourced and it's locally running, so we aren't exporting any of your data. I don't see any of your loans and no one else will, so you don't have to worry about losing that data. And it's also will be white labeled, so when they go to the product, it has their look and feel and their branding, so it feels like a part of their infrastructure. So our business model is still being worked out, but it's a fairly simple software sales. It's an annual fee, initially based to get traction on their amount of usage. So we'll work with banks to determine how much they're doing in loan processing a year and take a percentage of that as our fee. So our team is just myself currently. I've been 5 years as a software engineer professionally, though I started at the wee age of 11. So I like to say I've been writing software half my life, though 5 professionally. And currently I am a cybersecurity engineer and a hacker, actually. So I understand fully the ins and outs of securing a piece of software and the dangers that can come with taking data outside of a secure internal development. I say you here because as much as I'm looking for funding, I'm also looking for a co-founder, technical or otherwise, preferably someone who can bring me contacts in the banking industry or has those type of connections that can get me in the door with banks to show them this product and talk about how we can help. The ask, I'm looking for $1 million. Most of that is for hiring a development team to help me finish that product and taking it to market and getting in with these banks. That's been my biggest struggle so far, is that unlike barbers and people who need their hair cut 4 times or a month, loan processors and banking officials are kind of an opaque market. They're not typically hanging around on weekends talking about processing loans. So it's a much harder market to reach, and a lot of that is for getting directly to my customer to get them more into the market. And that's Kash Industries.
Great job, Tanner. Thank you. So, just off the top of my head, so Kurt LaCroix and I have a deep background. We worked for IBM for a long time, and we specialize in banking processes, loan processing specifically, and doing all these kind of things. So, as far as coaching, Kurt, I'm more than happy to coach you and kind of get you up to stuff on that. As far as funding-wise, the $1 million, it's going to be tough for your first round from a seed perspective, but hey, you never know. Any questions from the audience? Oh, lots of questions. Okay, let's start from left and work right. Ajay.
So, what's your typical target customer? Is it big banks, small to medium business banks?
Sure, and thank you for that. We talked about that earlier. Right now I'm looking at small, medium-sized banks. My feeling is your Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Chase, they've got multi-million-dollar development teams. If this was a problem or is a problem for them, it's likely much simpler for them to solve that in-house. But if you take Veritex Bank, just down the road here, I was actually driving by, they've got 4 or 5 branches in all of DFW. They don't have development teams. If this is a problem, and like the bank I'm talking to, a problem for them, they don't have development teams. They just know that you have a problem and they would like it solved. And they're happy to pay if you've got an easy to use solution that works for them.
Question right here? Yes, ma'am.
Hey, so quick question. How do you mitigate discrepancies in the price of one?
I apologize. Discrepancies in what?
So how do you mitigate any kind of discrepancies in the pricing of that? Like if there's a social security number,
Like merging change orders.
is it based on handwriting or?
Sure. So you upload the document and then stop me if I'm not answering your question. But this is mainly about splitting up the documents. So when you select those rules, it can show you in the application what it thinks it's seeing from you. So if it's not getting it right, you can correct it and teach it how it's being wrong, and it will learn from those mistakes. Is that?
Yeah, so you're using machine learning or software?
Right. So it's OCR mainly, and then you can correct it as it goes, and it will log that. It won't continue to make that mistake.
So the OCR engine sounds like it's recognize the characters for you, but you're going to put some kind of engine in the back end to kind of make it more smart.
Correct.
An intelligent way of verifying it. So great question. Next question, Scott.
I like the concept. What percentage of the way through are you this, and how long do you anticipate for full development to go actually to?
Sure. So I've built an MVP that will do the actual processing of an example document, and I've got the piece where you can build the rule sets. The last piece is to be built is to marry those two together, and then to actually build the front-end development. I am, by trade, I'm more of a back-end engineer. I can build the logic of things and the actual algorithms. The front-end development is the last piece that we'll be finding missing to go to product. I envision with funding, maybe not, $1 million is probably too high, but even with some amount of evaluation to hire a front-end engineer, someone like Faraj, I could be to a full product in 3 months. And I should mention I actually do have I was wary about putting it in the slide. I do have actually one bank who's ready for this product. I'm in talks with them, and they're just waiting for it to be built and serviced. So you were asking about exit strategy, correct? Right. I'm still looking into that. Like I said, a lot of this is still new. This is my first go at things. I will say for like return on investments, the nice thing about software sales is that once a product's built, there's very little overhead once it's going. Especially when you talk about this as an on-premises software, we'll have very little in the means of cloud costs or things like that. So the ROI is actually pretty high once we're selling it. We'll keep most of that as profit. As far as an exit strategy, I personally can see this going longer than just this product. A lot of my passion is in automating problems for a myriad of businesses. So for me right now, I see a lot of this as a jump start to a runway to solve the next problem and the next problem. So I haven't really, I guess, considered how to exit quickly as much as this is a jump start to many bigger things. Yes? Intellectual property? Not, I haven't like officially trademarked anything, no.